Hello students, today we are going to continue with our previous chapter, Work, Life and Leisure, Class 10th, History. In the previous two lectures, we started up this chapter by introducing how the cities developed throughout the world and how the new industrial or trading centers attracted a lot of population. These extra population now were posing a challenge to the authorities for management, for settlement and all criteria. So in today's lecture, we'll continue with how in the city of London, England, the extra population, the migrants who came inside the city in search of work, were now posing a threat to the social order. We started the description of city of London by explaining the marginal groups. These marginal groups, because they were an extra population and they were constantly in search of work, were now disturbing the social system. They were indulging themselves into criminal activities. Lack of work was throwing them into poverty, and especially the effect was seen on children, how they could not be entered into educational institutes and how they were forced to work for extra money. This was only combated after the introduction of the Elementary Education Act and the Factory Act, which controlled the involvement of children in the industrial activities. Now, how the population was to settle down. As there was a lack of resident and or housing, the people basically sought for resort under bridges or any possible areas where they could hide from the severe climate of London. Majorly, we see that the poor people who had an extra room in their houses would rent those rooms out for these kind of lodges. In daytime, most of them were roaming around in search of work. According to the data, around 1 million Londoners were counted as poor population and they were having a very poor life expectancy because of lack of food and basic facilities. Thus, we see that the government was posed with the responsibility of providing houses, sanitation facilities, and schools, hospitals, etc. for the settlement of this population. Now, with these situations, the government thought of cleaning the city of London. The efforts were initiated by first providing housing facilities to these migrants. Large blocks of apartments were built, and these were large buildings containing small rooms. These were also called tenements. The process of cleaning the city of London was also emphasized by creating large open areas, public parks, uh, wide landscapes, and trying to migrate or move the population from the main city. This was done by providing these people houses outside of the main city and trying to move the population away and making more space for bigger houses and bigger clean parks and open areas. Majorly, we see that the process was to create a green belt around the city of London. The architect and planner Ebenezer Howard was recruited and was given the responsibility of designing the city, and he came up with the principle of the garden city, the area which is supposed to be wide, open, full of plants and trees, and where the facility of housing and of work were both involved. This process was then emulated by Raymond Unwin and Barry Parker as well, and they also created beautiful views and large details. During the time when the two world wars were going on in between, the problem of housing for the working class was seen as a big threat for the state, and thus single family cottages were created, which were then shifted out of the main city to create spaces for the people. But moving the population was not an easy task for the government, as the people wanted to stay close to their workplaces. They inclined on living close to these factories and industries only. So the government had to create one option for them so that the population can be shifted to the outskirts of the city, as well as they should be provided with a medium of movement, quick movement between their workplaces to their houses. Thus, the demand or the need of a transportation system was felt. The quickest way of transportation at that time on land would be the railways. The very first section of the underground railway in the world opened on 10th January 1863 between Paddington and Farrington Street in London. And this underground railways came as a revolution in the city. The number of people it carried on a daily basis was tremendous. It crossed 10,000 passengers every day, every 10 minutes, sorry. And this movement was allowing the people to reside in outskirts of the city and then come back to the workplaces in time, thus uh, decreasing the time space. because most of the population was residing on the ground, the density of population was making it difficult to establish the railways on land. So the metros, that is underground railways, had to be created for allowing the smooth transportation between different areas. Initially, when the railways were introduced, the people saw the trains and the whole underground system as an iron monster, because the big engines, they were running on poles, and the people who were traveling in, they had to sit in an iron box. The people were getting scared initially, but for the profit, the whole system gradually became very successful. And now, even if you see in the present time, the metros are a very popular medium of transportation in between cities and the city of London. So we see that the government cleared out the problem of the first advent of migrants into the city, then sought the solution for the settlement of these people, and then finally the transportation medium was also introduced for the people. Now, when everything was settled, the new challenge was how the new population was to be entertained, or how the new population was to be given a chance to spend a time in leisure. This will continue in the next lecture. Thank you.